Hi and welcome to India Live with Sunil Jha. Thank you so much for joining. We are today going to talk about the vaccine. Yes, there's a lot of talk about when will vaccine be approved in India, when will Indians be immunized. Is vaccine the only solution or is it a viable solution? Are there flip sides of vaccine or there are certain concerns? There are a lot of questions which people have in their mind as they approach this vaccine, which is already introduced in certain countries like the UK and the US, where the situation is even more grave because they are introduced with a new kind of a virus and they are still struggling to deal with it. So virus is already, or the vaccine is already introduced in US, UK and other European countries, but India is preparing itself to immunize the whole of the country. And with our kind of a population, it's going to be a extremely difficult and Herculean task. So is India prepared to deal with it? What are the questions? That's what we will discuss in next 1 hour or so. And I'll be joined by a panel of doctors from both God and India to discuss what's happening there and what's happening here. Are we ready? क्या हम लोग तैयार हैं वैक्सीन को लेकर, उस वैक्सीन को लेकर जो वैक्सीन इकलौता एक तरीका है इस एपिडेमिक यानी इस महामारी से लड़ने का, इसके अलावा कोई दवाई नहीं है जो तैयार की गई है। तो अगर आपको बचना है तो ये वैक्सीन लगाना जरूरी है, ऐसा डब्ल्यूएचओ सरकार सभी कह रही है। तो फिर क्या ये वैक्सीन सेफ है लेना? कई सारे सवाल हैं, कई सारी चीजें हैं, लेकिन बिफोर वी गो टू दैट, let me just give you a brief and then I'll connect one by one the doctors as they could be coming on the platform. But first, a few facts. कई सारे रिसर्च हुए, कई सारे वैक्सीन डेवलप किए जा रहे हैं। कुछ वैक्सीन हैं जो यूएस में डेवलप हुए हैं, कुछ वैक्सीन हैं जो और दूसरे कंट्रीज में डेवलप हुए हैं, जैसे रशिया में डेवलप हुए हैं। इंडिया में भी रिसर्च लगातार चल रहा है क्योंकि इंडिया का जो वैक्सीन है, माना जा रहा है कि इंडियन वैक्सीन कंपैरेटिवली इजियर होगा और चीपर होगा। तो क्या इंडियन वैक्सीन चीपर के साथ साथ क्या इफेक्टिव भी होगा? व्हाट इज द ग्लोबल कम्युनिटी थिंकिंग अबाउट इट? कितना ज्यादा इफेक्टिव होगा इंडियन वैक्सीन? क्या कंसर्न्स है वैक्सीन को लेकर? क्या वैक्सीन सेफ है? तो कौन से वो वैक्सीन है जो इंडिया में तैयार किए जा रहे हैं? ऑक्सफोर्ड एस्ट्राजेनेका कोविड शील्ड मेडिसिन है जो सीरम इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ इंडिया तैयार कर रही है। ऑक्सफोर्ड एस्ट्राजेनेका कोविड शील्ड विच इज बीइंग developed by Serum Institute of India. The second one is Bharat Biotech, which is developing Covaxin, 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 and then Zydus Cadila. That's another company which is developing Zycov D, ZYCOV-D. That's what Zydus Cadila is developing. There are two vaccines which are already in use and developed. One is a US Pfizer vaccine and the other is a Sputnik V vaccine, which is a Russian vaccine, which has also been manufactured in India by Dr. Reddy. So Dr. Reddy's lab. There are vaccines which have already been developed, two of them, and Indian vaccine would be ready soon. So will India be ready to vaccinate its entire population? But more importantly, the question is, are the countries rushing with it? क्या ये वैक्सीन जल्दबाजी में तैयार किया जा रहा है? क्योंकि कुछ इसके फ्लिप साइड भी है। कोई भी 100% गारंटीड वैक्सीन नहीं है। उनकी जो परफेक्शन परसेंटेज है, कोई कहता है 91%, कोई कहता है 90%, कोई कहता है अराउंड 89%. So the question is, will these vaccines be effective enough to actually ensure कि आपको दोबारा कोविड नहीं हो? क्या ये वैक्सीन इंश्योर करेंगे? इस पर भी हम सवाल पूछेंगे। People in the US and UK are already being immunized. So are people in Russia who are already taking it. Doctors are already immunizing it. Doctors from UK would be joining. They will tell you their experience because they are the worst hit currently. UK is under lockdown. इंडिया में लॉकडाउन तो नहीं है, लेकिन इंडिया तैयारी कर रहा है वैक्सीन लगाने की। इंडिया जैसे जैसे तैयारी कर रहा है खुद को वैक्सीन, देश में जो लोग हैं लगभग 138 करोड़ लोग हैं भारत में, उनको वैक्सीनेट करने में फेजेस में किया जाएगा। सबसे पहले हेल्थ वर्कर्स, उसके बाद नेक्स्ट, फिर नेक्स्ट, और इस तरह से सबको वैक्सीनेट किया जाएगा। कई सारे सवाल हैं जो दिमाग में आते हैं, ये इसलिए क्योंकि बहुत सारी थियरीज, बहुत सारी एप्रीहेंशंस हैं, कई सारी मिसगिविंग्स हैं। is are the doctors going to answer all of those questions? We'll wait and see what they have to say. But these are the questions that come to our mind. Are the governments in a hurry to develop or immunize people with this vaccine, which is not 100% perfect? Number one, should one take the vaccine or not? Will the vaccine be effective? That's another question. Rohit Mishra, Dr. Rohit Mishra is already there with me. He'll be connecting from, uh, if I'm not wrong, UK, Birmingham, and exact location Rohit himself will identify. He comes from UK and he's a doctor there, practicing doctor. His father is also a doctor. So he comes from a doctor family. His mother is a doctor. I'm not too sure if she's still in the medical field. But father is a doctor and he himself is a doctor. So they know what's happening in UK. So he'll give that UK perspective and also talk about the vaccine. So he'll be the first to join. But quickly, I'll just identify the questions. Will the vaccine be effective? Whether there are any side effects of the vaccine? Where does Indian vaccine stand in comparison to the international vaccines? Will India be able to fight COVID-19 through the immunization program? What about the medicine to treat those who are already affected? Why is there no talk about medicines? Government is saying that do gaz ki duri hai zaruri, and also the use of mask and sanitizer will be important. Then why do you need a vaccine? अगर फिर भी ये सब करना ही है तो फिर वैक्सीन क्यों? And on that note, I will connect Dr. Rohit Mishra from UK, and let's start with him. He's already there on the panel, so we'll starting with Dr. Rohit Mishra. Thank you, Dr. Mishra, for joining. That's Rohit Mishra, Dr. Rohit Mishra, who joined from UK. Rohit, if you want to give a bit of an introduction, and in fact, even if you can just correct the light, there's too much of a light on your backdrop, so that is affecting or preventing your face from being clear. So just cut down the light on your backdrop. In your backdrop.
Hi, good evening. Yeah, I'm a
possible.
No, I can't be coming in through the window. It's one of the rare sunny days in the UK.
Okay, that's okay. That's fine. But can you change your frame a bit so that the light is reduced? Because your face is not very clear. Now it's better. Now it's better. Yeah, change a little bit, just a little bit. People should see you. That's okay. That's okay, Doctor. So that's Dr. Rohit Mishra, who will be talking about what is the situation in UK. Rohit, just tell me one thing first. First come first. How effective do you think is this COVID vaccine? Because that's the main question that's coming to people's mind. Is this vaccine, whether developed by US, which is Pfizer, or Russia, Sputnik, or Indian vaccine, are they really effective, or there are doubts as a doctor you have?
So when we can't talk about a COVID vaccine, as you mentioned, there are several COVID vaccines developed by primarily Pfizer, the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine in the UK, the Sputnik vaccine in Russia, and also the Covaxin vaccine produced in India. And when you talk about effectiveness, what we're really evaluating is the large-scale clinical trial data that these companies have published when they've tried the vaccines out on population groups. And the figures vary. The figures aren't actually equivalent, so you can't compare, for example, the Pfizer vaccines numbers with the Oxford AstraZeneca's vaccines numbers, because the study data and the study parameters will be different. But to answer your question, of the vaccines that have produced phase 3 clinical trial data, namely Pfizer, Moderna, and Oxford, the results are very, very encouraging and certainly show these vaccines to be effective. We're talking in the region of anything between 65 to 95% effectiveness, which for any vaccine is really, really good. And to give you a comparison, in the UK, every year we give a flu vaccine for influenza. We give this every year because we have an outbreak of flu every year in the wintertime. and the efficiency of that vaccine, the effectiveness of that vaccine, is in the region of 50%. So the numbers quoted by the COVID vaccines are certainly superior to that, and are about as good as you can hope for any vaccination.
Okay, Rohit, another question is that UK is struggling right now. So what's the problem? What is the concern that people in UK have? The new virus, why is it being perceived so dangerous? Because in India, it's not being taken that seriously. So why is UK under lockdown? It has gone under lockdown since the new virus came to the fore. So what's the concern related to the new virus? And will this, whether it is Astra, whether it's Pfizer, will this vaccine be sufficient to preempt the disease?
So what's happened in the UK is that the numbers of people catching COVID have increased, which was an expected thing because in the wintertime, obviously in a cold country like the UK, viral infections proliferate. People are indoors a lot. There's more chance for the virus to spread. So numbers have escalated as we would expect. However, in the last few weeks, there has been the emergence of two new strains of the COVID virus, a strain that originated in the south of the UK and also one that came from South Africa, so-called new variants of COVID. And these new variants are thought to spread much more quickly amongst people than the original variants of COVID. Hence, the numbers have risen much quicker in the last few weeks than we might have otherwise previously anticipated. It's not thought to cause any more severe of an illness. It doesn't increase the mortality rate. It's just spreading quicker. And because of that, the numbers of people catching the virus have increased, and therefore the government decided to put us into a lockdown. There is nothing to suggest so far from the information that I've read that the vaccines won't be effective against this new variant of COVID-19.
Okay. Dr. S.K. Mishra has also joined. He joined from Ranchi. So I'll be taking him on the platform as well, Rohit. Dr. Mishra is from Ranchi, and he'll be giving the Indian perspective to the entire thing. But before I take him online, just one more question before we discuss with Dr. Mishra also, Dr. S.K. Mishra. Both happens to be Mishra in this case. So Rohit, where do you think the concerns related to the vaccine comes? क्योंकि vaccine के अलावा कोई option तो है नहीं, right? Vaccine is the only option. So if that is the case, then where, if you have new strains come in, you have done research as per the first strain, now new strain comes, and now you are vaccinating a person. Will the person, as you said, it's 65% to 90%, that's a success rate, 65 to 95%. So it's not perfect. So how do you deal with this? Is it possible कि किसको लग गया वैक्सीन लगा दिया उसके बाद भी उसको फिर से कोविड हो जाए? Is that possible?
I mean, it's likely that the current vaccinations that we have will be effective against the new variants of COVID-19. So the concerns are more about how transmissible these new forms of the virus are, as opposed to the vaccines being rendered ineffective. So I think in terms of the UK, the best thing that we can hope for is to vaccinate as many people as quickly as possible, build up some immunity within the population, and therefore prevent the most vulnerable people becoming unwell with COVID-19.
Okay. So far, what is in terms of percentage? What is the percentage of people who have been vaccinated in UK?
So vaccination started about 4 weeks ago, and so far, I think around 1 million people have been vaccinated. In the UK, there has been a stratification, so the vaccine is being targeted at the most vulnerable people, first of all. People who live in care homes, people very elderly will be vaccinated first. Then it will be frontline healthcare workers, and then people over the age of 75, people who are very high risk for developing complication, such as those with serious lung pathologies, serious heart problems, other chronic illnesses will be vaccinated next. The aim in the UK is
to immunize. And what's the side effect? Any side effects?
All treatments have side effects. The data that was released both in terms of the clinical trials for the Pfizer, Moderna and Oxford vaccines indicated that most of these side effects were relatively mild, a few aches and pains, just like you would expect with any other vaccine. Our anecdotal evidence from people that have received the vaccine so far is that these side effects are also relatively mild. I'm not aware of anyone having very serious complications. It has been advised more recently that if you have suffered a very serious allergic reaction to a medication in the past, that you don't have these medications. But for the vast majority of people, there are no serious side effects that have been reported.
Okay, perfect. Dr. S.K. Mishra, if you can just put your camera a little up because you are not visible. Perfect. Yes, डॉक्टर मिश्रा ने रांची से ज्वाइन किया है और इंडिया डॉक्टर मिश्रा तैयारी कर रहा है कि वैक्सीन लगाना है, अभी लगवाएंगे, पहले तो आप ही लोगों को लगेगा, उसके बाद आम लोगों को लगेगा। रोहित को आप सुन रहे हैं, यूके यूएस में पहले ही इम्यूनाइजेशन स्टार्ट हुआ, वहां पर वैक्सीन ऑलरेडी लग रहा है। तो पहले तो अपनी बात बताइए, उसके बाद अगर आपके कोई सवाल है रोहित से या रोहित wants to ask anything from you, both of you can discuss because both of you are doctors, you will know better than all of us and people can benefit from the discussion that you will have. But first, your point of view on the vaccine. क्या ये वैक्सीन इंडिया में कब आएगा, कौन-कौन से वैक्सीन है और कितना इफेक्टिव होगा? Yes, go ahead.
So as of now, Rohit, hi, I'm Dr. Mishra, and I'll talk to you.
Also, Dr. Mishra, before you start, थोड़ा सा introduction दे दीजिए, and I'll request Rohit also. First, Dr. Mishra, SK Mishra, and then Rohit Mishra, to introduce a little bit to the audience, so that they will know at least whom are we talking to. Yes, go ahead, Dr. Mishra.
I am presently working with the National Health Mission, and we are about to roll out the vaccination process anytime in the next fortnight. And of course, the first batch would be us, the healthcare workers, and the frontline workers, which essentially includes the police personnel and the forces. So they will be the first lot to get the first dose of vaccination. And I think Rohit can also help me in understanding how they organize this whole thing, because in our case, it's going to be a very mammoth-sized exercise. The whole system is geared up. We are largely going to use the election mechanism and we'll replicate the whole thing minus the voting process. Here we'll be taking vaccines, but the entire system would be more or less the same, except that there will be minor nitty-gritty. We'll be using the school, the government schools, and we'll have more or less 10 centers for vaccination with 4 rooms, separate entry, exit. The protocols are the same more or less. There won't be any empty stomach who will be taking the vaccine. And then for us, we'll be given probably 4 to 6 such centers to supervise for any AEFI, as we call it, adverse effect of the regulation. So we'll have a kit, then ambulance will be kept in the readiness. So with all that, I suppose it should be a smooth running. And what vaccine we are going to use is...
बहुत सारे लोगों के बहुत सारे सवाल हैं डॉक्टर साहब, मैं आपसे रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा, एक तो आपकी आवाज बहुत साफ नहीं आ रही है, तो अगर ईयरफोन है तो आप ईयरफोन यूज कीजिए और मैं आपको दोबारा 1 मिनट में कनेक्ट करता हूँ। और दूसरी, आप थोड़ा हिंदी में बोलिएगा क्योंकि आप दोनों लोग इंग्लिश में बोलने लगेंगे तो बहुत सारी हिंदी ऑडियंस है, उनको कुछ ज्यादा अंदाज नहीं हुआ, तो आपसे भी रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा आप थोड़ा सा हिंदी में मिक्स कीजिएगा ताकि हिंदी जो लोग जानना चाहते हैं, जो हिंदी में सुनना चाहते हैं, उनको भी समझ में आए बात। रोहित, by the time he gets mic'd up, I want to know from you, there is one concern that, yes, Dr. Mishra, I'm coming to you in 1 minute. One question I'll take from, you take your time. One question I'll take from Rohit. There is a common question, Rohit, that people have. Are the governments rushing with this vaccine? क्या गवर्नमेंट जल्दबाजी में वैक्सीन ला रही है, चाहे वो यूएस हो, यूके हो, चाहे इंडिया हो? Are they rushing with this vaccine? Because earlier it was said that it will come in June 2021, but suddenly in December they started the immunization process. So have they rushed with it?
So it's not really the government that's rushing, because the government, certainly in the UK and US, vaccines aren't in charge of the trials. So it's the drug companies that are running the trials. There is a rush to get the vaccines out to the population for obvious reasons, with the pandemic in full swing. But it's not the government's rushing it directly. Normally, you're right, clinical trials do take sometimes many years to yield the same sort of data and results that these drug companies have achieved in less than a year. But that's for a number of reasons. You know, obviously, there has been almost an unlimited supply of funding, given the combined interest across the whole world to defeat this virus. You've had teams of researchers working around the clock. You've had a willing supply of volunteers. These are normally roadblocks in a clinical trial that lead to the clinical trial taking many, many years. Now, all these processes have happened much, much quicker because of the dire situation the world is in. So while it might seem that the vaccine has come out very quickly, and that may worry some people, it seems to me, certainly for the vaccines that have been produced in the West, that all the right procedures have been followed. They've all undergone rigorous scrutiny by the regulatory bodies, and they've all been peer reviewed, and all of those things withstand scrutiny.
Okay. So you are saying, Rohit, that this vaccine may have come early, but it doesn't compromise the medical requirement that is attached to a vaccine. So clearly, it doesn't compromise. That's what you're saying.
I'm saying that is the case for the 3 vaccines that have been approved in the UK. Well, sorry, 2 in the US, 2 in the UK. So, namely the Pfizer, Moderna, and AstraZeneca. Now, the situation with the Indian vaccine is slightly different because, to the best of my knowledge, that hasn't undergone phase 3 clinical trials as yet. And for a drug to be successfully licensed in the UK, it would need to undergo phase 3 clinical trials. Now, the Covaxin Indian vaccine hasn't undergone that process as yet. What that means is difficult to say. It means that it hasn't been tested on large-scale populations and that it hasn't been peer-reviewed. Now, that's not to say that it isn't safe. What I'm saying is that we haven't had the data as a scientific community to scrutinize. A similar thing happened in Russia as well with the Sputnik vaccine. To my knowledge, there hasn't been any phase 3 clinical trial data. So I can't comment on either of those vaccines for you.
Russia actually rushed with it because they brought in 2 months. I don't know how they did it. Dr. Mishra, can you just give an audio check because I want to take you online. Oh. Yeah, I think it's better. Let me just take you online. Doesn't matter. Yeah, this is perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Just set your camera a little bit on our.
I'll do that.
Face is not completely visible. Yes. It got cut. He was trying to connect and got disconnected. So anyway, since Dr. Mishra is getting connected and you are there, one is that there are certain international standards which you have to meet, as you said, right? When you are putting a vaccine in public domain. Now, in this case, as you mentioned, that Russian, I'm not very sure about the Russian vaccine because it was done in such a great hurry that one is not sure that whether they followed all the requirements of international vaccine medical standards. I don't know that, but I'm sure they must have, but I'm not sure about it. Now, people want to know that once you vaccinate somebody, that is understandable. But what about those who are in hospital? How do you treat them? उनको कैसे ट्रीट करेंगे क्योंकि वैक्सीन इज प्रीएम्प्टिव वो तो उनको जो जिनको नहीं होना है यू आर प्रीएम्प्टिंग इट कि एटलीस्ट प्रिवेंटिव है यू कैन प्रिवेंट इट बाय गिविंग अ वैक्सीन सो अदर्स विल नॉट गेट इट बट व्हाट अबाउट दोस हु आर इन हॉस्पिटल नीडिंग मेडिकल केयर हाउ डू ट्रीट देम
So yeah, good question. So the vaccine, one of the things you mentioned is that I think you mentioned that the vaccine stops the spread of the virus. That is one characteristic that we're not sure of yet. What the vaccine does is stimulate someone's immunity to COVID-19. So if you are vaccinated, the chances of you developing a serious complication or a serious illness if you were to catch COVID-19 are much, much reduced. What we don't know from the data as yet is whether it stops the spread of the virus. So that is to say, if I'm vaccinated with the COVID vaccine, does that stop me spreading it to you or anybody else? We won't know that yet for many, many months. The main impact is to reduce severe illness and death in large numbers of the population. That's what the vaccine does. Of course, once you're in hospital, vaccination isn't a treatment. It's not a treatment for COVID. It's a preventative, as you mentioned. There are a great number of treatments that you can give to people who are in hospital with COVID-19.
Okay.
And certainly the death rate in the UK has fallen since the first wave back in March because those treatments have improved. So, for example, oxygen treatment, ventilation, we're now giving steroid treatment as a very early measure, and all of these things reduce the impact of the virus and reduce the probability that you're going to develop a serious illness or death.
ओके डॉक्टर एसके मिश्रा, आपका कट गया था लाइन। मैं ये जानना चाहता हूँ कि एक सवाल मैंने रोहित से पूछा, रोहित ने उसका जवाब दिया है कि उनका अपना परसेप्शन अबाउट द फैक्ट दैट कि क्या गवर्नमेंट ने जल्दबाजी की, क्योंकि ये बहुत बड़ा सवाल है कि इतनी हड़बड़ी में तो नहीं ले आए थे। ऐसा तो नहीं कोई मेडिकल पैरामीटर कॉम्प्रोमाइज हो रहा है, इंटरनेशनल स्टैंडर्ड्स कॉम्प्रोमाइज हो रहा है, बिकॉज रशियन वैक्सीन कुछ 2-3 महीने में ही आ गया और अब कहा गया था कि जून में आएगा, आ गया ये दिसंबर में ही। So, is that being compromised or everything has been taken care of?
Everything has been taken care of. We have followed all the international protocol. Everything has been followed. Only thing is that the first vaccine, that is it, the AstraZeneca vaccine, that has been given approval after full deliberation, after full trial research. Everything is in order. After that, this has been given. There has been some shady questions about the other one, which is indigenously developed. And that Covaxin, that has not yet undergone the third phase of trial, and there are a lot of questions being asked. I'm just wanting to tell you that as someone who is going to organize the rollout of this vaccination process, only AstraZeneca would be used for the vaccination. I repeat, only AstraZeneca will be used for the vaccination. The other one has been given approval just as an emergency use, which means it is CBRN, chemical, biological, radiological, or nuclear, any such effects. For that, it has been given the approval. It is not for regular vaccination, not for regular.
तो आप डॉक्टर ये बोल रहे हैं कि भारत में जो वैक्सीन लगाया जाएगा वो ऑक्सफोर्ड एस्ट्राजेनेका वैक्सीन लगाया जाएगा, that's what you're saying, which is COVID shield. That's what it is called, COVID shield, right?
COVID shield, and that has been उसका पूरा सब तरीके से जांच पड़ताल हो गई है, एंड जो भी उसके जो अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मानक हैं उन पर हम खरा उतरे हैं, उसके बाद ही इसका इस्तेमाल हो रहा है। और आप लोग क्यों परेशान हो रहे हैं? सबसे पहले हम लोग लगाएंगे और हम लोग लगा करके जब बच जाएंगे तब आप लोगों को लगाएंगे, तो आप डरते क्यों है? डरिए मत, लगवाइए।
नहीं, आप डॉक्टर साहब एक चीज और बता रहे थे कि भारत जैसे देश में, इतने बड़े देश में, इतने लोगों को इम्यूनाइज करने में कितना टाइम लगेगा, कैसे करेंगे?
ये बहुत बढ़िया आपने सवाल किया है। कल ही हमारे यहाँ पर जो कमिश्नर हैं उनके साथ मीटिंग हुई हम सब डॉक्टरों की और जो भी पैरामेडिक्स हैं उनकी। ये आपको बता दूं कि ओवरनाइट नहीं हो रहा है, इट इज बीइंग टेकन केयर ऑफ सिंस लास्ट 4 months। पूरे डेटाबेस बन रहे हैं, जो भी वैक्सीनेटर्स हैं, जो ANMs हैं, जो नर्सेज हैं, जो सहिया हैं, आंगनबाड़ी हैं, उन सब की ट्रेनिंग ऑलरेडी चल रही है और हो भी रही है। वैक्सीनेटर्स को बताया जा चुका है, वहां पर जो इंतजाम करने हैं उसके लिए जितने भी एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव मैकेनिज्म है उनको गियर अप कर दिया गया है। कहाँ पर कमरे लिए जाएंगे, किस स्कूल में करना होगा, कैसे एम्बुलेंस के नंबर्स होंगे, सारा चीज ऑनलाइन होगा। आपको ये बता दूं कि जहां भी वैक्सीनेशन होगा वहां पर आप अगर सीधे जाएंगे तो आपको कुछ नहीं मिलेगा, आपकी पहले से रजिस्ट्रेशन होगी, उसके लिए शायद एक ऐप लगाया जाएगा। अभी फिलहाल वोटर कार्ड
लॉन्च किया गया है, मैं थोड़ा बता दूं उसके बारे में। आपको एक सेल्फ रजिस्ट्रेशन करना है थ्रू मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ हेल्थ, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया का वेबसाइट है, उन्होंने इन्फॉर्मेशन और आपको दिया जाएगा। आप लोगों को उस पर रजिस्टर करना पड़ेगा और फेज वाइज वो रजिस्ट्रेशन होगा। इस फेज में कौन सा एरिया जाएगा, उसके बाद उसमें रजिस्टर करेंगे। जिनमें जो नहीं रजिस्टर करेंगे उनको नहीं दिया जाएगा, जो रजिस्टर करेंगे उन्हीं को दिया जाएगा। उसमें भी डॉक्टर मिश्रा की एज स्पेसिफिक कैटेगरीज है, जो एजेड ज्यादा है, जिनका एज ज्यादा हो गया, पहले उनको लगाया जाएगा। अपार्ट फ्रॉम मेडिकल एंड इमरजेंसी स्टाफ, उनको तो रजिस्ट्रेशन की जरूरत नहीं, उनको रजिस्टर ही नहीं किया जा रहा है, उनका ऑटोमेटिक रजिस्ट्रेशन हो रहा है, राइट? जैसे आप हैं, रोहित है, इनका ऑटोमेटिक रजिस्ट्रेशन है, इनको रजिस्ट्रेशन नहीं करना, गवर्नमेंट के पास इनका रिकॉर्ड है। आम लोगों को रजिस्टर करना है, जैसे मैं हूँ या और लोग हैं, दे विल हैव टू रजिस्टर, and in that keeping the age category, sex, age and other categories in mind, वो उसके बाद डॉक्टर्स डिसाइड करेंगे, पैनल डिसाइड करेंगे किसको कब होना है, कब इम्यूनाइज होना है। इसके बाद जो आप बता रहे हैं वो
तो ये सबसे सबसे जो जरूरी बात समझने की है कि जब वहां पे जाएंगे लोग वैक्सीन लेने के लिए, तो उनको वहां पर एकदम बिल्कुल क्रिस क्रॉस नहीं होगा। जो इम्यूनाइज्ड और अनइम्यूनाइज्ड लोगों के रास्ते अलग होंगे, पानी पीने का इंतजाम होगा, वहां उनके जो इमरजेंसी है उसको टैकल करने के लिए सारी व्यवस्था होगी। और सबसे बड़ी बात है कि आपको वहां जा करके रजिस्ट्रेशन की सुविधा नहीं। आपने ठीक बताया कि आपको साइट पे जाकर पहले से रजिस्ट्रेशन करना है। जो और मजेदार बातें हैं, जो इंटरेस्टिंग बातें हैं, वो मैं आपको बताऊं कि जो वैक्सीन है उनके हब्स हैं हमारे यहाँ, करीब 59,000 हब्स हैं। ये हब्स हैं बिल्कुल आइसलैंड रेफ्रिजरेटर्स हैं, जो बिल्कुल कोल्ड रूम है। उनके अंदर में ये सारे कंट्री में इन जगहों में ये हब्स में वैक्सीन होंगे। वहां से आइस बॉक्सेस में, जो आइसलैंड रेफ्रिजरेटर ILR बोलते हैं, तो आइस बॉक्सेस में वहां से लेकर के और फिर जो हेल्थ केयर वर्कर हैं उन तक पहुंचाया जाएगा। ये जर्नी शॉर्ट हो, इसके लिए ट्रैफिक फ्रीज करने की भी शायद बात चल रही है। ग्रीन चैनल क्रिएट किए जाएंगे और ये सारा दिन वैक्सीन नहीं होगा, जैसे वोटिंग होती है सारा दिन, वैसा नहीं होगा, क्योंकि ये टेम्परेचर सेंसिटिव है। तो इसको हम लोग कोशिश करेंगे कि जल्दी से जल्दी करें। लेकिन हर व्यक्ति को वैक्सीनेशन के बाद आधे घंटे तक मैंडेटरी है वहां पर रहना, उनके रहने की व्यवस्था की जाएगी। दे विल हैव प्लेस टू रेस्ट and there will be beds in case they have any adverse effects, so that कि आप वैक्सीन लेकर के आप
period is
रिक्वायर्ड। और वो जब, क्योंकि अगर वो वैक्सीन लेकर के सीधे बाहर जाते हैं और वहां पे अगर उन्हें चक्कर आकर के गिर जाता है, तो हमारे देश में आजकल हर व्यक्ति जर्नलिस्ट है, तुरंत वीडियो बना करके उनको 1 करोड़ लोगों तक पहुंचा देगा। तो हम लोग ये कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि उनको बिल्कुल जाने ही नहीं देंगे बाहर। और मेरा एक सजेशन ये भी था कि जैसे एयरपोर्ट में घुसते समय आपको एक टाइम का एक स्लिप मिलता है कि इतने बजे आप एंटर किए हैं, तो बगैर उस टाइम के आउट स्लिप के आप बाहर निकल ही नहीं सकते। मतलब आधा घंटा आपको वहां रहना ही रहना है, तो कार्ड आपको आने मिलेगा। सो वी आर ट्राइंग टू डू दैट। और आपको ये भी बता दूं कि उत्तरांचल जैसे राज्यों में जहाँ की हिली टेरेन है, जहाँ पर अंडुलेटिंग टेरेन है, वहां पे ड्रोन्स की भी ड्राई रन की गई है और ड्रोन से भी उनको समय बचाने के लिए और टेम्परेचर मेंटेन करने के लिए वैक्सीन बॉक्सेस को ड्रोन से भी डिलीवर करने की बात की जा रही है। तो आप समझ सकते हैं कि कितने, बिकॉज द होल वर्ल्ड इज वॉचिंग हाउ वी आर गोइंग टू ऑर्गेनाइज 30 मिलियन। आप देखिए 30 करोड़ लोगों को एक फर्स्ट फेज में अभी वैक्सीनेट किया जाएगा। 30 करोड़ लोग, मतलब
5 phases हैं. About first phase is the medical staff, and the second phase you are talking about, the general public.
तो टोटल आप समझ सकते हैं कि 60 करोड़ डोजेज पड़ेंगे। 2 डोज पड़ने हैं 1 महीने के अंतराल में, 28 दिन के। बच्चों के जो वैक्सीनेशन होते हैं, इम्यूनाइजिंग चिल्ड्रन, इन्फेंट्स, is rather easy compared to the adult immunization, for a very simple reason that you may take the first dose and move on to Mumbai or Delhi or some other place on some business on some account, और उसके बाद आपको ट्रैक करना, this is going to be a very challenging job, because आप अगर दूसरा डोज नहीं लेते हैं तो वैक्सीन का फेलियर का चांस है। तो आपको कैसे ट्रैक करके दूसरा डोज आप जहां है वहीं उसको ऑर्गेनाइज किया जाए, एक मैसिव डेटाबेस क्रिएट किया जा रहा है। और ये क्योंकि बच्चों को वैक्सीन देना जो है आसान है, माँ उसको लेकर के आती है, मोमेंट कम होता है। बच्चे 1 साल के अंदर उनको सारे वैक्सीन पड़ जाते हैं, उनको DPT, पोलियो, MMR सारा 1 साल, जब तक वो चलना शुरू करते हैं उसके पहले हम लोग वैक्सीनेट कर देते हैं। बट एडल्ट्स इट विल बी वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू ट्रैक फॉर वेरियस रीजंस एज आई टोल्ड। तो ये सारी चीजें की जा रही। अब ये सवाल उठता है कि वैक्सीन लेना है या नहीं लेना है। I'm sure Dr. Rahul,
I'm coming to that, but पहले मैं लोग जो प्लेटफॉर्म पर है मैं उनको बता दूं कि अगर कोई भी डॉक्टर से कोई सवाल पूछना चाहते हैं तो सवाल मेरे पास है, वो आप ही लोग ने भेजे हैं, मैं पूछ रहा हूँ। अगर किसी के दिमाग में कोई सवाल है वो डायरेक्टली प्लेटफॉर्म पर आकर भी पूछ सकते हैं। द लिंक हैज बीन शेयर्ड, आप लोग सीधा आइए और सीधे सवाल पूछिए। डॉक्टर साहब, रोहित, इफ यू आर लिसनिंग टू डॉक्टर SK मिश्रा एंड डॉक्टर SK मिश्रा इज लिसनिंग टू रोहित, आप दोनों पहले एक दूसरे से जो सवाल है ना वो पूछिए, क्योंकि ये सवाल तो मेरे जर्नलिस्ट के तौर पे, बट एज अ प्रोफेशनल क्या वहां हो रहा है, क्या यहाँ हो रहा है, क्या आपके दिमाग में सवाल है, क्या रोहित के दिमाग में सवाल है, मुझे मालूम नहीं। तो पहले आप लोग थोड़ा 5 मिनट बात कीजिए, 10 मिनट में सुनता हूँ कि एटलीस्ट आप लोगों के दिमाग में क्या सवाल है। उसके बाद आई विल कम टू माय क्वेश्चन, जो आपका क्वेश्चन है, जो आपने पूछा अभी डॉक्टर साहब, वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन है कि क्या ये इफेक्टिव होगा। दैट्स व्हाट यू आर सेइंग, एक क्वेश्चन को आप बोल रहे थे। तो पहले आप दोनों के दिमाग में जो सवाल है वो मैं सुनना चाहता हूँ कि आप लोगों के दिमाग में क्या सवाल है।
No, I just want to understand from Rohit one thing and only one thing. did you feel at any point of time that the whole exercise was not going to be effective or worthless or not worth the effort?
The immunization program.
Yeah, a vaccination. Or you understand, or you think that, okay, let's go for it. Because at the moment, I think there is no other option. We have to go for it.
I think it became clear once that this had developed into a pandemic that the only way of exiting the pandemic is with vaccines. There is no other alternative. The only other alternative is to somehow develop some kind of herd immunity, whereby if people caught COVID-19 naturally, you would eventually build up a population-wide immunity. But of course, that is not a feasible option, really. So the only viable exit for the whole world is vaccination.
I'll not ask about the side effects or adverse effects because I know they are minimal and they're mostly hyped up. Most of the vaccines, they have worse side effects. Polio has given us worse of side effects. I'll not talk about that. Side effects are there, bound to be there. Mostly it would be allergic. And I think people are prepared to tackle that. Number two is people have taken first dose, that is all right. Are they willing to go for the second dose by themselves, or are you trying to persuade them, or the government is going to give them or ask them to come back for the second dose?
So what has happened is that we've obviously targeted the most vulnerable people first. The uptake so far, to my knowledge, has been good. People are coming forward. I haven't seen anything to suggest that people are refusing vaccination. I think with every week that passes, we're obviously vaccinating more people, confidence will begin to grow. We've changed our strategy slightly in the UK, in that initially the plan, we're currently predominantly immunising with the Pfizer vaccine. The plan was to immunise the first dose and then give a second dose after 3 weeks. That's now changed, and we're now going to be giving the second dose of all vaccines after 12 weeks. And our strategy in the UK is to immunise as many people as possible with one dose.
No, one second. You're saying that instead of 2 weeks, you're going to immunize the second shot that you have to take. That will be after 12 weeks.
That's right. So why everyone needs 2 doses of this vaccine?
So is there both the doctors, please clarify, is there a fixed time for the second dose, or is it flexible?
So it's the clinical trials were done on a basis of 3 weeks in the second dosage. However, the regulators in the UK looked at the data, and it's thought that the first dose of the vaccine will give you something like 50 to 60% immunity. Okay. The second dosage will give you that residual immunity, whatever it is, another 10, 15, 20%. So it's felt that the best way is to give people, as many people, the first dose of the vaccine as quickly as possible, rather than giving people 2 doses of the vaccine.
So Dr. Mishra, Dr. S.K. Mishra, what Rohit is saying is very interesting. उन्होंने कहा कि पहले पूरा फर्स्ट फेज में पहला शॉट लगा देते हैं सब, और उसके बाद दूसरा करेंगे. इंडिया में तो ऐसा नहीं, इंडिया में 28 डेज का रेगुलेशन कर दिया है, राइट?
No. I think what he is saying is that they have a very limited population compared to ours. So if we do something like that, it is going to be a big chaos. So I think we'll stick to the first, the kind of schedule that we have made. But we are going to roll it out over a period of a couple of months, and you will not believe the way we have done. It's a well-oiled machine. So that is for us.
डॉक्टर साहब पहले ये क्लैरिफाई कर दिए, रोहित ने बताया कि यूके में क्या हो रहा है. यूके में ये हो रहा है कि
हम समझ गए.
नहीं, मैं पब्लिक
अधिक से अधिक लोगों को कवर कर रहे हैं. अधिक से अधिक लोगों को कवर कर रहे हैं.
मुझे मालूम है आपको समझ में आ गया, पब्लिक को थोड़ा समझा दूं. रोहित ये कह रहे हैं कि इंडिया में और यूके में फर्क है. जब आप यहाँ पर इम्यूनाइज कर रहे हैं तो पहला शॉट जो आप ले रहे हैं उसके 28 दिन के भीतर आपको दूसरा शॉट लगना है. तो आपको वैक्सीनेशन 2 बार होना है इसमें. और द रीजन जो रोहित बता रहे थे कि पहले बार में 50 to 60% इफेक्ट होता है, और जो बचा हुआ कोई भी आउट अगर होगा तो अगली बार जब आप 28 दिन में लेते हैं तो आप कंप्लीटली आपके अंदर एंटीवायरल एंटीबॉडीज डेवलप हो जाती है. तो 28 डेज इंडिया में 28 डेज फिक्स है. रोहित बता रहे हैं कि यूके में उन्होंने ये सोचा कि अगर हम ऐसा करेंगे तो शायद हम लेट हो जाएंगे, तो पहले सबको पहला शॉट लगाते हैं और अगला शॉट जो लगाएंगे वो हम 12 वीक बाद लगाएंगे. 12 वीक में सबको पहला शॉट लग चुका होगा, यानी 3 महीने में हम सबको पहला शॉट लगा देंगे. उसके बाद हम सेकेंड राउंड ऑफ वैक्सीनेशन स्टार्ट करेंगे और तब सबको लगाएंगे. दिस इज वेरी डिफरेंट फ्रॉम जो इंडिया में हो रहा है. यस डॉक्टर प्लीज गो अहेड.
I'll just ask Rohit one more question. Are you giving the full dose and half dose and full dose? There was some discussion like that about the doses of vaccination. So, because there was a lot of discussion amongst our professional groups. So, what kind of doses are you sticking to? The standard one dose each?
So this is, you're asking about the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. Yeah. So at the moment, we started vaccinating 4 weeks ago, as I said, with the Pfizer vaccine. The first person to have the Oxford vaccine only had it 2 or 3 days ago. So this was approved by our regulators about a week ago. The first vaccination happened the day before yesterday. At the moment, they're having 2 full doses of the Oxford vaccine. Your question arises from the fact that when the trials were done, there was some patients accidentally were given a half dose of the first vaccine.
Yeah, that's how we read. That's how we know. Yeah, and the results were very good.
Yeah, unexpectedly, the results were that offered more immunity than having 2 full doses of the vaccine. Now, we haven't gone down that route because the large-scale phase 3 trials were done with 2 full doses. That still gives you 60-65% immunity, and that is inadequate to confer immunity on a large number of the population.
That's true.
That may change in time.
Rohit, there is a question by Megha Agrawal. Now, Megha is asking a very valid thing. She is saying that when the human body is the same across the globe, then how can you have different parameters for vaccinizing or immunizing somebody, where kahin par 28 din, kahin par 12 weeks, which is 3 months, aisa kaise, jabki human body to same hai? Why is that then? Are you not risking it?
I'll tell you, there is no risk. There is no risk. Rohit, I think I can clarify it. Human body is the same. Human body is the same everywhere, but this virus is treacherous. It is changing every day, and there is no set of rules that we have been following. Last 1 year, we are trying to understand this virus, and it has been teaching us day and night. We still have no protocol to treat. We still have no protocol to vaccinate. So every other day we are learning. I think Rohit can add.
So medically, it doesn't make a difference because her question is sort of a medical. Ki agar body same hai, to fir ye difference kyun? Kahin par 28 days, kahin par 3 weeks.
I think it depends on the circumstances in an individual country. In the UK at the moment, cases are close to becoming out of control. Our NHS is very close to being overwhelmed by COVID-19. So our priority is to confer immunity on as many people as possible, as quickly as possible, to keep the virus under control. Now, in another country, that may not be a priority. For example, Australia has very low levels of the virus, so it makes perfect sense for them to give it as per the clinical trials with 2 doses 3 or 4 weeks apart. I think it's a case of needs must, and our need in the UK is to give as many people as possible, as 40, 50, 60% immunity to really try and get this virus under control. So while everyone across the world will react to the virus to the vaccine in the same way, it's the local circumstances of where you're at that will dictate how you deliver the virus and how you logistically do things.
And
so Megha, basically what Dr. Mishra are saying is this. मैं तो बता दूं थोड़ा, उनका दोनों का कहना ये है कि क्योंकि हम इमरजेंसी सिचुएशन, नॉर्मल सिचुएशन में नहीं, इमरजेंसी सिचुएशन में मेडिकल रूल्स भी चेंज होते हैं इमरजेंसी के हिसाब से. अगर अभी हम नॉर्मल रूल अडॉप्ट करेंगे तो बहुत सारे लोग और भी इससे अफेक्टेड हो जाएंगे. टू मिनिमाइज दैट, रोहित जो कह रहे हैं वो ये कि टू मिनिमाइज दैट, यूके में क्योंकि सिचुएशन बहुत खराब है, वहां कंट्रोल नहीं हो पा रहा है. इंडियंस की तरह नहीं है कि हम लोग वायरस से थोड़े से फिर भी बचते हैं, क्योंकि हमारे ऑलरेडी रोज हमको वायरस हिट करते हैं. यूके में उसने वायरस हिट नहीं करते, यूएस में उसने वायरस हिट करते हैं, तो हमारी बॉडी ज्यादा इम्यून है वायरस को लेकर. डॉक्टर साहब, डॉक्टर एस के मिश्रा ज्यादा एक्सप्लेन करेंगे, बट जो बात मुझे समझ में आती है वो ये कि क्योंकि दे आर इन इमरजेंसी सिचुएशन, दे हैव चेंज द रूल्स टू इंश्योर कि कम से कम मिनिमल इम्पैक्ट जो हो वो अडॉप्ट करना चाहिए, जिससे मिनिमल डैमेज. डॉक्टर एस के मिश्रा, प्लीज एक्सप्लेन दैट. आपको क्या लग रहा है इंडिया में और यूके में जो फर्क रोहित समझा रहा है, तो आपको आपके हिसाब से ये सवाल का जवाब क्या है?
मेरा सवाल का जवाब यही सीधा ही है, क्योंकि उनके यहाँ नए स्ट्रेन आ गए हैं और उनके यहाँ सिचुएशन थोड़ी ज्यादा गंभीर हो गई है, तो उनको अभी अधिक से अधिक लोगों को एक तरह से कारपेट बॉम्बिंग करना पड़ेगा.
ऐसा कैसा कारपेट बॉम्बिंग है? नहीं, मुझे समझ नहीं आ रहा है ऐसा कौन सा कारपेट बॉम्बिंग है. यहाँ पे 138 करोड़ पॉपुलेशन, हम लोग हड़बड़ा नहीं रहे, वहाँ पे कम पॉपुलेशन वो हड़बड़ा रहे.
क्यों? इसलिए कि हमारे यहाँ मोर्टेलिटी रेट उनके यहाँ से काफी कम है. वी आर मच बेटर ऑफ, फॉर वंस वी आर मच बेटर ऑफ, एंड कंपेयर टू लास्ट 6 months व्हाट इट वाज लास्ट 6 months अगो, अभी की जो कंडीशन है उसके हिसाब से हमारी जो कंडीशन है काफी अच्छी है. हमारे यहाँ क्योर रेट भी ज्यादा है और डेथ रेट तो 1.3
तो
के करीब है.
बेसिकली व्हेन यू आर सेइंग
तो
दिस,
वी आर
आप
कंफर्टेबल.
डेथ रेट मोर्टेलिटी पे कंपेयर करके बोल रहे
ये हमको लगता है कि शायद अभी हम लोगों को इतने डरने की जरूरत नहीं है. और दूसरे है कि इतने सालों, इतने महीनों के बाद हम लोगों ने थोड़ी डिसिप्लिन तो सीखी है. एसएमएस जिसे हम कहते हैं, सैनिटाइजर्स, सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग एंड मास्क, दैट वी हैव बीन रिलीजियसली यूजिंग, दैट आल्सो हैज वर्कड. बिकॉज आप जब
That's
मास्क
where my
यूज
question
करते
comes. That's where my
हैं
question
आप.
comes. एक तरफ रोहित, the government is saying that you need to take the vaccine. Okay, vaccine आपने ले लिया, पहला राउंड भी ले लिया, दूसरा राउंड भी ले लिया. This question is for both of you.
Yeah.
Once you have done the immunization, you have vaccinated somebody, then why do you need a mask? And you still need sanitation, मतलब sanitizer use, and you still need to maintain that distance.
That is a point to understand. I tell you what, the vaccine is
दो
not.
गज की दूरी
No.
रखना है जरूरी. क्यों?
Let us
वैक्सीनेट कर दिया तो ठीक कर दीजिए.
नहीं, ये वैक्सीन जो है ये बीमारी को कम करता है, खत्म नहीं करता है. It just reduces the intensity and severity of this disease. It doesn't eliminate it. It's like wearing a helmet. You have to learn how to ride properly, then only helmet will work. It is an additional safety. It is not going to eliminate the virus. Please be very clear.
So Rohit,
The
that
mask
means
is here
someone
to
has
stay.
already got it,
Yeah.
can again get it, despite the vaccination, can still get the COVID-19.
So
sadly,
coronavirus can still be hit by coronavirus.
Sadly, that is virus. That is virus, and that is how it has been behaving. I think Rohat can clarify it.
Well,
Virus can
yeah,
do
right,
anything.
right.
the big unanswered question with the vaccination is, will it prevent transmission? Which is what I mentioned earlier. So, as I said to you, if I get immunized, I am unlikely to die or get a serious complication, become seriously unwell. But it doesn't. We don't know yet whether having the vaccine means that I won't spread it to you or anyone else. That information will emerge later. Now, it's possible that the vaccine could stop the transmission of the virus, and if it does,
एस्टिमेशन ने यही एग्जैक्टली यही बोला है कि हम सिर्फ
that would be a
मिनिमाइज
really
कर सकते हैं, हम उसको एलिमिनेट नहीं कर सकते.
No.
we don't know. It may or may not stop transmission. If it does stop, if it's proven to stop transmission, that will be a real game changer. Because if I have the vaccine and I can't spread it on to anyone else, that is the holy grail. That's what we want. If it doesn't stop transmission, then these social measures and things will have to remain in place for some considerable time. Yes.
ओके डॉक्टर मिश्रा, तो सवाल ये है कि अगर आपको वैक्सीनेशन के बाद भी गारंटी नहीं है
जी,
तो फिर तो क्योंकि रोहित ने बताया कि 95% ही इसकी एफिकेसी है, 95% के बाद की गारंटी नहीं देता है ये वैसे भी वैक्सीन, राइट? तो अगर ऐसा है तो रोहित का कहना है कि अगर किसी को लग गया ये वैक्सीन तो उसकी मोर्टेलिटी के रेट, मतलब मोर्टेलिटी के चांसेस कम हो जाते हैं, उसको बहुत इन्फेक्शन भी होगा तो माइल्डर होगा और उसके बचने के चांसेस बहुत बढ़ जाते हैं. अभी जिस तरह से कई लोग आईसीयू में जाके वापस नहीं आते, ऐसा नहीं होगा. इफ यू हैव बीन इम्यूनाइज्ड तो आप सेफ हो, कंपैरेटिवली सेफ हो.
एग्जैक्टली.
क्वेश्चन इज,
आपको क्वेश्चन क्या है बताइए.
क्वेश्चन ये है डॉक्टर साहब कि ये तो हो गया उनका जिनको नहीं हुआ है ना, आप इम्यूनाइज कर रहे हैं टू प्रिवेंट, आपने प्रिवेंटिव स्टेप ले लिया कि भाई जिसको नहीं हुआ है उसको नहीं होगा या कम हो जाएगा. लेकिन व्हाट अबाउट दोस जिन लोगों को हो गया है, जो ऑलरेडी हॉस्पिटल में, उनको क्या ट्रीटमेंट का भी कोई तरीका है या नहीं? क्या है ट्रीटमेंट?
देखिए, ये दो डिस्कशन है. एक तो है कि जो पहले से जिनको हो चुका है उनको वैक्सीन लेना चाहिए या नहीं, और ये डिस्कशन काफी लंबा चला है. Whether to take vaccine if you have already suffered the virus, your antibodies are strong and your things are okay. In that case, whether you should go for the vaccination or not. Answer is yes. Please go ahead and get the vaccination. Number two is there is something called herd immunity. Herd immunity, we are a part of herd. And it is very easy to understand if you understand that way. अगर मान लीजिए किसी अपार्टमेंट में 50 फ्लैट्स हैं और उसमें से 40 में चोरी हो चुकी है, उसी रात अगर चोर दोबारा आता है चोरी करने, तो 40 चोर जो खुले दरवाजे देखेंगे तो उसके बाद वो शायद वो वहां से निकल जाएगा कि भाई इस अपार्टमेंट में डाका पड़ चुका है, अब यहाँ आने से कोई फायदा नहीं, तो बाकी के 10 बच जाएंगे. So herd immunity is something close to that. अगर आपके population में maximum लोगों को ये हो चुका है, either by way of infection or by way of vaccination, both ways, then only this cycle can be cut. The cycle has to be cut only through herd immunity, and herd immunity can be afforded only through vaccination or having an infection. This vaccination is giving you a very minimal level of infection, and that teaches the body to fight the virus in real terms. So अगर वैक्सीन लेना है तो लेना है, लेकिन ये आपके severity को कम कर देता है।
वैक्सीन लेने में रिस्क है।
वैक्सीन लेने में रिस्क उतना ही है जितना आपके गाड़ी में बैठ करके फ्रॉम ए टू बी जाने में एक्सीडेंट से मरने में।
Okay, all right. Madhu, please go ahead with your question. Madhu Singh has joined. Madhu wants to ask a question. Madhu, जिससे पूछना है आपको, रोहित या डॉक्टर एस के मिश्रा, जिससे पूछना है, please go ahead.
Hello sir, my name is Madhu Singh from Guwahati, and I'm really feeling very fortunate today that I'm getting chance to ask the question from national and international doctors without any fees.
Thank you, thank you.
तो मेरा ये कहना है कि जैसे अभी तक हमने कोल्ड कफ या जो हमारी जो नॉर्मल कोल्ड और कफ होती है फीवर, तो आज तक उसकी हमें ठीक से मेडिसिन तक नहीं मिली है। वैक्सीन तो छोड़िए, हमें ऐसी मेडिसिन तक नहीं मिली है जिसको हम खा के अपने आप को बिल्कुल फिट एंड फाइन कर आज उनका रनिंग होते हो गए। तो मेरा ये कहना है ना कि इसी से रिलेटेड ये कोविड भी एसिम्टोमेटिक थी, मुझे कोई
आप थोड़ा क्लियर बता पाएंगे क्या? ये
आपकी आवाज साफ नहीं आ रही मधु,
कहीं ऐसा तो नहीं? हाँ बताइए
मधु बोलिए।
सर मैं पहला वाला क्वेश्चन फिर से रिपीट, जैसे कि सर अभी तक हमने जो नॉर्मल कोल्ड और कफ होते हैं, जो नॉर्मल हम लोग कोल्ड होता है जब हमें तो उसकी तो हमें कोई आज तक कोई मेडिसिन तक नहीं हमें इफेक्टिव मिल चुकी है कि जो हम उसको रिकवर कर सके। हम आज भी काढ़ा और गर्म पानी खरीदते ही रहते हैं या ज्यादा होम्योपैथी जाते हैं। तो सर मेरा ये क्वेश्चन है कि जो कोविड है वो भी रिलेटेड ऐसे सिम्टम्स देता है, तो अगर जब नॉर्मल कोल्ड कफ का आज तक कोई वैक्सीन या कोई मेडिसिन नहीं निकला तो अचानक इतनी जल्दी कोविड का निकला।
ओके,
नहीं ये तो जरूरत के हिसाब से है।
आई रोहित, यू हर्ड दैट क्वेश्चन राइट? पहले रिपोर्ट कर लेते हैं, फिर उसके बाद रोहित पहले आप।
हाँ, मेरी एक ही मैं आपको समझा देना चाहता हूँ कि वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट वायरल इलनेसेस इन बोथ केसेस, कोल्ड एंड कफ एंड द कोविड, both are viruses and both of them have no cure for sure. Most of them cure by themselves, but this virus is treacherous. It does a lot of damage inside the body, and the long term effects are very, very bad, severe, and at times life-threatening. Unlike the cough and cold, the normal flu and cold, they do not do like that. So the reason was that the entire world was grappling with a solution, find a solution. Finally, they worked overtime to see how we can take care of this virus, and that is how the vaccination came. There was never any need for cough and cold vaccination because it cured itself, and there was nothing life-threatening about this. Unlike COVID, that is why people work overtime to find it. Rohit might add to it. Yeah.
Yes, I can. Actually, in the UK, we're very used to dealing with viral illnesses. We have every year we run a influenza campaign to immunise people from the flu every year, because just like COVID, every year we have an outbreak of seasonal flu, and a great number of people die from that also every single year. So from about August, September, all through the winter, we immunise our elderly, our vulnerable against the winter flu. So this is certainly not something new. Seeing something like this isn't new. What's new is the virus itself. This has not been encountered in humans before, and that's why it has caused so much damage. The flu viruses, there's a level of natural immunity in the UK because we see it every year. And we have the vaccinations to deal with them. Eventually, it is likely COVID-19 isn't going to go away completely. It will go from being a pandemic to becoming endemic. And eventually, we'll get used to it. We'll build an immunity. And while there may be outbreaks every year for a number of years, the impact will be much less because people will have been immunized, people will have been infected. So there will be some immunity within the, as a human population.
Yeah.
Okay. Madhu, you have any other question?
Yes, sir. Another one, like I was asymptomatic and my neighbor was symptomatic. We both have different, symptoms. Like मुझे तो पता ही नहीं था कि मुझे कोविड है अगर मैंने जबरदस्ती टेस्ट नहीं करा ऐसा होता। और वो जो थे वो सिम्टोमेटिक थे और उन्होंने काफी लंबा सफर भी किया। वो उनको लाइक लॉस ऑफ टेस्ट एंड स्मेल वो सब कुछ था, भी था, सब कुछ था। सिम्टोमेटिक भी मैं अगर टेस्ट नहीं कराई होती तो शायद मैं वो भी निकल गया होता। मुझे कुछ तो सर हमारी बॉडी ने अलग अलग रिएक्ट किया। लाइक माई बॉडी लाइक माई एंटीबॉडी रिएक्टेड डिफरेंटली देन
So you were unsymptomatic and she was symptomatic. Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So that is how it behaves. That is how it behaves. And incidentally, those who have lost their taste and smell, they did not need to be tested even for the COVID because it was 100% sure that it was COVID only. And at the same time, we could tell them that without even testing also, we could tell them that they will be cured 100% also within 4 to 6 weeks. That sense of taste and smell will come back. This is how it happened. So those who had loss of taste and smell, they fared better compared to those who had other symptoms like breathlessness or some other high fever and other things. Those who had breathlessness, they suffered longer because they had some pneumonia, as we call it. This was a damage caused by the virus, and directly the virus was not required. And also they had long COVID. Long COVID मतलब कि खून का थक्का बनने लगा और उस वजह से और भी ज्यादा किसी को हार्ट की भी बीमारी हुई। तो ये जो जिन लोगों को हर बॉडी जो है हर एक को अलग अलग से रिएक्ट करता है। Most of the people we lost during the first few months, they were because of these complications rather than small. And younger people are not being given the vaccination in the first phase precisely because of that. That for all you know, they might have suffered the virus already and they may not require the vaccination altogether for a few months to come. Because those who suffer the virus.
Yeah, go ahead, complete.
Those who suffer the virus, those who suffer from this virus, they have a natural immunity about 3 to 4 months. So probably they can wait compared to those who are elderly and having comorbidities. Because most of the patients that we lost, they had comorbidities. And everyone knows the blood pressure, sugar, kidney diseases, immune diseases. So all those and elderly people, they were the ones who suffered the worst and we lost most of them. And the younger ones who died, they died because they did not take care of themselves by way of protecting themselves. High viral load. Most of, I think Rohit is listening, most of our colleagues, we lost over 450 colleagues. And we lost them largely because they kept working through and through with high viral load and also because of certain indiscriminations and indiscretions, like taking off the mask while taking tea or coffee or sharing the lunch together, or talking and not maintaining distance in the ward or the corridors, maintaining everything inside the ward, but outside the ward in the corridors, probably the safety issues were not taken care of. So the viral load is very important. At the same time, comorbidities, both of them are very important. Younger persons are not being given the vaccination, keeping in view this only.
Okay. Before I go to the next question, let me just make this clear. Anish, you are writing, how do I come up and put my question? There are links being shared on this platform if you're getting it, fine, or else I'll just put it there on YouTube. So I'll ask someone to put it on YouTube. YouTube messages I can clearly see. GS, you're saying go to Facebook. Sir does not see live chat of YouTube. No, that's not correct. I'm reading out. That means I'm obviously getting your messages. So no worries regarding that. One question which is there for both of you is the medicine is for the one who did not have COVID yet, but still it will be completely immune. But still it will not completely be immune, and side effects are also there. So what is the benefit of taking the vaccine?
No, there are no side effects. It's been largely
there are that's exactly my point. Rohit, you are also there, and Dr. Mishra is also there. There is a general misgivings that it has side effects, it doesn't help, you will have other kind of a complication. So are these things logical or is it just a hearsay?
I think hearsay, and mostly because of I dare say it is WhatsApp University that is actually spreading this kind of message. We should not listen to that. Go to the standard government site, CDC, like NHS or like Government of India health site, but please do not go into whatever message that pops up in your WhatsApp group every morning. Please do not go and believe that. These are unconfirmed sources, and someone just writes it in the night and then spreads around. So please do not fall for that. Go for the vaccination. That's the only way out, because we need to reach the herd immunity to protect others. As simple as that.
Okay. Okay. Yes, Rohit, you want to add anything to it, or I go to the next one? One more.
I would
Let's
agree.
take a question, which is this. You can add on to the same question. Is there any effort being made to have some medicine? Is there any medicine being developed to fight COVID, or is it only the vaccination? Because this is preemptive. What about the medicine to treat COVID? Is there any research going on the medicine? क्या कोई medicine develop हो रहा है जिससे आप treat कर सकें COVID जिसको हो जाए?
So COVID-19 is a viral illness. As someone mentioned before, there are generally no cures for viral illnesses. I'm sure there is research being done. There are medicines to treat COVID-19. But really, when you're talking about treatment of COVID-19, you're talking about the very small number of people that become seriously unwell with the disease, that end up in hospital and then develop complications as a result of COVID-19, the main one being pneumonia. So there are treatments for those, and since the start of the pandemic, our knowledge into the virus has increased, and the treatments that we are using have become more effective. So, for example, using steroids at an early stage of illness has been shown to massively reduce the mortality. And if you look at the data in the UK, while we have many more infections, proven infections now, the mortality figures are actually less than they were back in March and April. And that is because we have got better at treating the complications that arise as a result of COVID-19. I don't think we'll ever get to the stage where if you fall ill with COVID-19, you'll be able to take a pill and it will go away. That's not what happens with viruses. It's about prevention of complications. But as Dr. Mishra said, the real way out of this pandemic is vaccination to build up herd immunity. I would agree that we shouldn't be listening to things on WhatsApp, and there's a lot of disinformation on the internet. Stick to, Government of India, NHS, BBC websites. I have no concerns about vaccination. I'm hoping to get vaccinated either next week or the week after, and I'll certainly get vaccinated personally as soon as I possibly can. I have a number of colleagues who have been vaccinated, and friends of mine, they have reported no ill effects.
Okay. Tell me, Doctor, there's a question, Dr. S.K. Mishra. If we take the vaccine, after that, COVID test is still required in case we get symptoms, or it is not required once you are vaccinated?
In any case, we are not testing enough now because it's not needed. The incidence has come down, and if there are cases, then probably I don't think anyone who is vaccinated with COVID, he needs to be tested for COVID, because at best you can test for the antibodies. There's no need to go for PCR. And someone has asked about the cost. So cost is at the moment zero. Government is providing it free. I don't know about later.
My question is this. Rohit, first you and then Dr. Mishra. What is your impression about the vaccine that is being developed in India? What is the international impression about the vaccine which is being developed in India? Do you think is it going to be to meet the global standard, or you think it is going to be substandard? What's your impression? The doctors working US, UK, Europe, what is their impression about the Indian vaccine? Because doctors are जरूरी है ना, केवल हम लोग अपना तकलीफ लेते रहे, वो क्या सोचते हैं जरूरी है जानना. So Dr. Rohit Mishra, please clarify what is your impression about Indian vaccine?
Yeah, it's actually a relatively straightforward answer. It is impossible to have a scientific opinion because we haven't been presented with any scientific data of an appropriate standard to make a judgment. So I can't tell you whether the vaccine is good or not because there's been no published level phase 3 data on the biotech virus. And until we have that information, no one can make a judgment. It's only guesswork.
Precisely.
It may be incredibly effective, it may not be. We can't say until we have more data. as Dr. Mishra mentioned, it sounds like it's been licensed for emergency use. I'm not fully familiar with the regulatory processes in India, but as I said, you can't make a scientific judgment on the virus until you're presented with the appropriate data.
Precisely. I say we are on track. All I can say, we are on track, and the manufacturing process has been quite easy, and it suits the developing world like India and other oriented countries. And I understand it is going to give us the phase 3 data would be favorable, and after that it will be pressed into service. At the moment, it has been given just emergency use, considering the
डॉक्टर एसके मिश्रा, आप ये बताइए कि भारत ने जो बनाया है, हम लोग तो ठीक है कि फाइजर का तो इंटरनेशनली सबने एक्सेप्ट कर लिया। हमारा जो डेवलप हो रहा है, 3 या 4 हैं जो डेवलप हो रहे हैं, 3 हैं, बाकी तो प्रोड्यूस हो रहे हैं। एक ऑक्सफोर्ड एस्ट्राजेनेका जिसको आप कोविड शील्ड बोलते हैं, आप बोल रहे हैं केवल वही लगाया जाएगा। दूसरा है जो कोवैक्सीन है, जो भारत बायोटेक डेवलप कर रहा है, जो आप बोल रहे हैं इमरजेंसी वैक्सीन है वो। और तीसरा है जाइडस कैडिला का ज़ाइकोव डी। तो
और एक रशियन है,
इसके अलावा फाइजर का वैक्सीन है जिसको लाना मुश्किल हो रहा है।
नहीं, उन्होंने अप्लाई भी नहीं किया है, अभी रेगुलेटरी बॉडीज के सामने अप्लाई भी नहीं किया है। और एक चौथा आप मिस कर रहे हैं, रशियन वैक्सीन जो स्पुतनिक।
मैं आ रहा था आई वाज कमिंग टू दैट। स्पुतनिक भी है जो डॉक्टर रेड्डी उसको यहाँ पर मैन्युफैक्चर कर रहा है। ये कुल मिला के वैक्सीन है। इसमें से आप कह रहे हैं कि इंडिया में ऑक्सफोर्ड एस्ट्राजेनेका जो है केवल वही लगाया जाएगा, विच इज कोविड शील्ड। बाकी जो है सब इमरजेंसी यूज के लिए, राइट? तो फिर ये है कि ये हमारे हम जो डेवलप कर रहे हैं देश में, चाहे भारत बायोटेक कर रहा हो, चाहे वो जाइडस कैडिला कर रहा हो, चाहे कोई और कंपनी भी, 2-3 और भी फार्मास्यूटिकल कंपनी जो इन्वॉल्व है, तो उनकी रिलायबिलिटी कितनी?
रिलायबिलिटी देखिए, ये सारा प्रोटोकॉल जो फिक्स है वो इंटरनेशनल प्रोटोकॉल है, और उनके फेज और ट्रायल्स जो हैं वो सारे फिक्स्ड हैं। तो अगर ये सारे ट्रायल्स से निकल जाएगा तो इट विल बी एप्लीकेबल इन एनी कंट्री ऑन एन इंटरनेशनल पैनल। उसमें कहीं भी ऐसा नहीं कि यहाँ, क्योंकि सारा चीज जो है ये डेटा हम लोगों को शेयर करना पड़ता है और ये उनके वेबसाइट पे डालना पड़ता है, और उनके यहाँ के रेगुलेटरी बॉडी, जैसे उनके एस्ट्राजेनेका के जो डेटा थे उनको उन्होंने हमसे शेयर किया, और हमारे यहाँ जो रेगुलेटरी बॉडी है, जो एक्सपर्ट पैनल है, उन लोगों ने एनालाइज किया और उसके बाद उन्होंने ओके किया। लाइकवाइज हमारा जो है उसको बाकी लोग देखेंगे। हमारे में एक खास बात है कि इट विल बी इजी टू मैन्युफैक्चर, इट विल बी इजी टू स्टोर, एंड इट विल बी more effective because we feel that it should be more suitable for Indian population and population in the third world country. This is what our assumption.
So that's a matter of doubt कि India develop कर रहा है. Only my concern is कि Rohit, do you think that this vaccine which India is developing will meet the global standards and also the global competition? Because बहुत सारी countries हैं जो Indian vaccine खरीदना चाहती हैं, तो क्या will it meet the global competition?
Impossible to say whether it will. As I said, we need data for that, and as yet, no data has been published. It sounds like, from what Dr. Mishra is saying, that the things are in place to have that data available at some point in the future, at which time it will be scrutinized, and the scientific community will make its judgment, as will any regulators that hope to use the vaccine. What I would say is that I think certainly both for Asia and globally, it's important, it's vital almost for India to produce a successful vaccine. India currently produces 60% of the world's vaccines at low cost, and to get large-scale immunization in the Indian subcontinent and Asia, I think the route for that is to develop a successful Indian-produced and manufactured vaccine.
There are 2 questions, Dr. S.K. Mishra, which are similar. I will just combine the 2 and then you can answer that. One is the vaccine suitable for any person regardless of other diseases and allergies? And second is, what about those people who have low blood pressure, diabetes problems, etc., etc.? Is it safe for them also? Both are related.
I'll come to the second one first. The person who are having no diabetes, no blood pressure, no sugar, and they are under 50, they'll be given vaccination later in a second or third phase. First phase is reserved for those who are vulnerable to the viral infection. And the first one was what?
The first one is that is it good even for those who are actually suffering from other diseases?
See, we are observing all the vaccinees for half an hour, and anything should happen. It is largely because of the ingredients that are
तो
added
मतलब
as
बेसिकली किसी को
preservative.
हार्ट इशू है या किसी को ब्लड प्रेशर है, किसी को शुगर है, किसी को
हाँ,
किडनी
तो
की इशू है, किसी को लंग्स का इशू है,
उनसे
तो
कोई
क्या उसके लिए
मतलब
भी ठीक है?
नहीं, उनके सेफ है, सेफ, उनके
ओके,
लिए सेफ
एक और क्वेश्चन है, इज द वैक्सीन सेफ फॉर ऑल एज ग्रुप पीपल, एंड रिलेटेड टू दैट इज द क्वेश्चन दैट इज द वैक्सीन सेफ फॉर किड्स आल्सो?
है. No, it has not been tested for people under 16, and probably they'll be excluded at the moment. I think Rohit can qualify it. Did you give it
Wait,
to
what is
under
the
16?
situation there in UK? Is it
No,
being given to kids? बच्चों
No,
को
I
दिया जा
don't
रहा
think.
no,
Rohit, can you clarify?
none of the trials included children. None of the trials included children, and certainly in the UK, there is no plan at this stage to immunise children.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if that will change in the future. It may not. In the UK, there's no plans to immunise under the age of.
And why is
21.
that? And why is that? Why is the vaccine not being developed for children below 16?
I think a number of reasons. Children get a very mild form of the illness, so there's not a public health need to immunise them because there are a tiny number of children that become unwell with COVID-19. So it doesn't make sense to immunise all children to prevent a very few children becoming unwell. And I think by the time you immunise,
so children are comparatively they're immune to this COVID-19.
they're not immune. They don't suffer complications. So if a child gets the virus, it's usually either they have no symptoms at all or they have very mild symptoms. The older you get, the more likely you are to have complications, and therefore the virus is targeted at elderly people first, and younger people after that.
Okay, so that's why it's called the disease of the elderly. क्योंकि उनको ज्यादा इफेक्ट कर रहा है, ज्यादातर जो डेथ हो रहे हैं वो एल्डरली में हो रहा है. श्रीपर्णा ने क्वेश्चन पूछा था ये, श्रीपर्णा, द वैक्सीन विल नॉट बी फॉर चिल्ड्रन, सो किड्स विल नॉट बी वैक्सीनेटेड फॉर कोविड-19 एज ऑफ नाउ. 16 साल से जो ऊपर के लोग हैं, केवल उन्हीं को ये वैक्सीन दिया जाएगा. इज दैट राइट, डॉक्टर एस के मिश्रा?
ट्रू.
तो जो इंडिया में, क्योंकि यू आर पार्ट ऑफ दैट प्लान, कैसे आप लोग डिसाइड करते हैं किसको पहले लगेगा? बहुत सारे लोग रजिस्टर कर लेंगे, सबने मान ली रजिस्टर कर लिया, तो किसको पहले देंगे आप? छोड़ के मेडिकल फ्रेटर्निटी या मेडिकल इमरजेंसी स्टाफ के अलावा जनरल पब्लिक में आप क्या डिसाइड करेंगे किसको पहले देना है, किसको बाद?
ये कैटेगराइज करने के लिए थोड़ा एक्सरसाइज करना पड़ेगा. मेरे ख्याल से जो सेकेंड फेज में जिन लोगों को टेकअप करेंगे हम लोग, वो 50 से जो ऊपर के हैं और जिनको कोमॉर्बिडिटीज है, उनके जो वैलिड जो डॉक्यूमेंट्स होंगे इलनेस के या मेडिकल रिकॉर्ड्स होगा, बेस्ड ऑन दैट दे विल बी आइसोलेटेड एंड आइडेंटिफाइड. और अब उसमें अगर कोई गलत रिकॉर्ड देकर के, गलत रिपोर्ट देकर के कुछ करेंगे, कुछ पिलफरेज हो सकता है. बट ये मुझे लगता है कि अगर हम लोग एक साथ एफिशिएंटली सारे लोगों को कवर करते जाएंगे तो हड़बड़ी नहीं होगी और लोग समझ जाएंगे कि एक आध महीने में मेरा नंबर वैसे भी आ जाएगा. तो मुझे लगता है कि
हड़बड़ाने की जरूरत नहीं है, थोड़ी ना रश, आपका नंबर आएगा, आराम से रहिए, हड़बड़ाइए
एकदम. और ये बहुत जल्दी खत्म कर लेंगे हम लोग, आप देखेंगे, बिकॉज ये बहुत ही एफिशिएंटली हम लोग इसको रोल आउट करने वाले हैं. ये 3-4 महीने में 100 करोड़ लोगों को हम लोग दे देंगे. आप देखते चलिए, बहुत तेज हो गई.
100 करोड़ लोग
दे देंगे हम लोग, आप देखते चलिए. मैं अभी ऑफिशियली नहीं बताना चाहता हूँ.
ह्यूज नंबर, इंडिया का पॉपुलेशन ही है 138 करोड़, तो 100 करोड़ तो बहुत बड़ा नंबर है. बच्चों को नहीं. बिफोर वी क्लोज, एनीथिंग दैट इज देयर which is there in your mind, which you want to share with anybody, advisory or anything that you want to share, and then I come to Dr. S.K. Mishra. First, Rohit, you go.
Rohit,
Yeah, I would just urge anyone that is offered the vaccine to take it up. Please take it up. I can only reiterate that as far as we know, it's safe, it's effective, and it will end this pandemic. So please don't listen to disinformation. Stick to trusted website, World Health Organization, BBC, NHS in the UK. Don't listen to disinformation. And if you're offered the opportunity, please have the vaccine.
Okay, so we have got some question coming from Sanjeev. Sanjeev asked that question, and then we shall be closing. Yes, Sanjeev, quickly go and ask a question from whoever you want, Rohit or Dr. S.K. Mishra. You know Dr. S.K. Mishra, but Rohit is connecting from UK, so whoever you want to ask the question, go ahead. Can't hear you. Just check, is it mute by any chance? No, Sanjeev can't hear you. Just remove your headphone and then try. Disconnect your headphone and then
take the plug out. Yeah, pull the plug out.
Take the plug out. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Sanjeev. No, can't hear. Just reconnect. Just reconnect. Can't hear you. आपको आवाज आ रही है डॉक्टर मिश्रा? नहीं आ रही. एक बार फिर से संजीव reconnect कीजिए. I will wait for you. Don't worry. No issues. Just reconnect. Yes, Rohit, you are saying something. Go ahead. Complete.
No, just urging people to take the vaccine. Stick obviously to all the social measures that are in place, but yeah, I can't strongly encourage people enough to have the vaccine. As I said, I can only talk about myself, and I'm hoping to get vaccinated either next week or the week after. I know amongst the doctors that I work with and my colleagues, we're all going to get vaccinated and without hesitation. And I would
yes, Vivash, go ahead with your question. Vivash?
Yeah, I was listening to Dr. Rohit Mishra. I have a question. In fact, you mentioned that, kids are not found to be, getting impacted by COVID. There is a new strain which has come in Nigeria, which is COVID strain, and which impacts only kids in the sense, in fact, people who are below 20 years of age. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of companies, in fact, the medical companies, the companies which are producing medicines, they have already started their trial runs on kids which are around 18 years and below. So what's your take on that?
So I haven't heard this, so I can't answer with any authority. What I said was that in the UK currently there are no plans to immunise children. This is not over by any means. There is likely to be further strains of the virus. Viruses always mutate. There is also the possibility, of course, that the current vaccines are rendered ineffective if there is a completely new strain of the virus. If that's the case, then the pharmaceutical companies will have to change the vaccines themselves to counteract any new strain of the virus. So this is a dynamic situation. There may be other strains.
So there's no trial being conducted on children at all anywhere in the world? No trials at all?
Anywhere in the world, of the vaccines that have been approved, none were tested on children. No. So therefore, we don't have any data on children. Now, if there is a new strain that emerges that makes children unwell or is spreading rapidly against children, that situation will change, and we will have to look at the clinical priorities differently. So it's a dynamic situation, it's an evolving situation. The information which I've given you today is based on where we are now. That might change in a month, in 2 months. It might not change at all. So watch this space, I would say. Things may well change or they may not, but we'll wait and see.
Anything else, Vivash, you want to add on?
Not an add-on. I have another question, in fact, which is, if you look at US primarily, in fact, what they have is the Pfizer and the Moderna one. These are the two vaccines which are there. Probably Moderna is the one which is used more. But why is it that, I have spoken to a lot of people who have either taken a shot or otherwise, their comfort level with Moderna is a slightly bit higher than the Pfizer one. I have another case of a Pfizer one which I want to add on, but that maybe, if I can have a take on this, or maybe if you want, I can add. In fact, there has been a case of a health worker in Portugal about 2 days back, who took a Pfizer shot on 28th of December, and that person, that's a lady of 41 years old, without any comorbidity, without any other health condition, she passed away on the 1st. Not sure whether it has got anything at this stage to do with the shot, because they are doing an autopsy, and once the autopsy reports come in, only then probably they'll be able to come and know whether it's got anything to do with the Pfizer shot. But even otherwise, between the Pfizer and the Moderna, why is it that people's preference is more towards Moderna?
What you're describing is anecdotal. You said that you have talked to people that have had one or the other and they've stated a preference. I don't think anyone can state a preference because no one is going to have both vaccines. So there will be things that people hear anecdotally. What I would urge people to do is to listen to the scientists and listen to large level population data. Don't listen to what one person says, 2 person says, 5 person says. Look at what thousands of people are saying and look at the data.
That's right.
Your neighbor may have said, oh, it hurt, having the injection made me feel poorly, or it hurt my arm. That's one person. The trials have been conducted on thousands of people and they're known to be safe and effective. So my advice is don't listen to a handful of people. Look at the respective website and look at what the experiences are of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people. In the UK, we've vaccinated 1.3 million people so far in 4 weeks. There is nothing to suggest that people are suffering, that they're getting any ill effects. For most people, it is better to have a bit of discomfort or have a slight side effect of feeling a bit achy and painy for a day or two than having COVID. It's a simple choice. Would you rather have COVID or would you rather have a mild side effect to a vaccine? I think it's a very clear and simple choice. And for the vast majority of people, it is better to have a vaccine, have a sore arm, maybe feel uncomfortable for a few hours than have COVID. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
So there's no way I was, challenging the efficacy part of it, because both Pfizer and Moderna, after the second shot, is almost at around 95% efficacy. So not that, but, other than that, if I spoke to a few doctors as well, and their preference was more towards Moderna, is when I was trying to find out why is that so. So as far as the efficacy goes, both are almost around 95% after the second shot.
Again, you're talking about things that are anecdotal. So you're talking about an individual's preference.
It's subjective. It's subjective. Someone might feel good with that. Someone might feel no. So it's purely subjective. Purely subjective. And we are not going to have either of them here. We are going to have
Covaxin. Yeah, absolutely. It's Covaxin,
and this has been time tested. As you said, 2 million people have been acting.
I think Rohit has made a particular answer that one has to go by research and not go by in particular incidents, because then it is very difficult. But ultimately, you have to make a choice. Either you have to choose a lesser evil. Which one is a lesser evil? That's what you have to choose, and that's exactly what he's saying. Yeah, Bhivash, anything else that you want to ask Dr. Mishra also? SK Mishra, in Indian context. Yeah. Thanks, Rohit. Thanks. If you want to leave, Rohit, you can. If you want to continue, another 10 minutes will be closing the session anyway.
I have a clinic, I'm afraid, so I'll leave. But I thank you
okay, perfect. No issues.
The time.
No issues. Perfect. I think we have taken a hell lot of time of yours. So thank you so much, Rohit, for connecting. Keep coming on the platform. This is your platform. And thank you so much. I think all the input that you gave was valuable. And all the luck. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thanks, doctor. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yes. Bhavesh, if you have a question to Dr. SK Mishra.
I just wanted to add to that. The Nigerian story, I think I'll have to dig into it. It's very interesting. But only thing is that by and large, virus does not affect the smaller children that badly as the elderly. That is a general rule, because the children
this was the general perception, doctor, before the Nigerian episode happened, which is only 2 days old. Which is only 2 days old.
2 days old. Yeah, I know that. People must be reading into it. People must be doing researches. Data must be flowing in. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But only thing is that at the moment we are looking into a bigger Goliath, bigger mammoth problem, and vaccinating the entire population of this country. That is a bigger issue. And we are following the same set of norms, which is followed globally, internationally. And we're trying to vaccinate the vulnerable people first. Children will come at least quite later. Maybe by then we'll have sufficient amount of herd immunity, and probably they'll not require
and data also, and probably data to know whether they are getting impacted or not.
So probably they'll not need any vaccination altogether. Once we reach a 63% plus vaccine.
Sunil, just 1 second.
Yeah.
Doctor, I was just before I came in, I was listening to you. You mentioned that you're going to have the vaccination done for about 100 crore people in about 4 months of time. How is that?
Unofficially. First phase, we are going to do 30 crore people. That means 60 crore doses. And that will be a reality in next 2 to 3 months. So that you'll see. And if you can do that, obviously we can do the rest of it.
Doctor, there is nothing unofficial about it. Government is saying that our attempt is that we want to immunize. हम लोग चाहते हैं कि देश में जितने भी लोग हैं जो इस ब्रैकेट में आते हैं जिनमें बच्चे शामिल नहीं हैं, बच्चों को छोड़ के जितने भी बाकी लोग बचते हैं उनका इम्यूनाइजेशन अगले 4 महीने में हम कंप्लीट कर लेंगे। ये टारगेट है। तो इसमें ऑफिशियल कुछ भी नहीं है, ये ऑफिशियल टारगेट है जो गवर्नमेंट कर रही है। उसके लिए वो एक्टिवेट कर रहे हैं। डॉक्टर मिश्रा को उन्होंने रांची में एक्टिवेट किया है। तो एक टीम रांची में बनी है जो झारखंड में अलग अलग शहरों में बनी, उनमें से एक टीम रांची में बनी जिसमें डॉक्टर मिश्रा है। इसी तरह हर शहर में टीम बनाया गया है ताकि एक साथ सारे जगह काम हो सके विभाष। और 4 महीने के भीतर 4 months is also more. They're saying we want to target to complete first as well as second shot within the next 4 months, not just the first shot. दोनों phase of immunization जो है वो उनका target है कि by May the whole of the country will be immunized, both the rounds.
Sunil, it's good to have a target, but my question is more to do with the practical difficulty part of it, in terms of if you look at 100 crore people to get vaccinated, we are looking at 200 crore shots to be given. Do we have that many doctors in India? We do not. How are we going to do it?
Wait a minute. I'll come to that. First of all, let us accept that this is going to be an administrative exercise, more of administrative exercise than a medical exercise. Let us accept that. It has a lot to do with the administrative mechanism. It has a lot to do with the social mechanism. People like you and me, instead of sitting home and discussing this over social media, probably in next 4 months, we'll have to come out, motivate people, make queue at the places, help people get registered, help people take them to the facilities. This will be done by you and me and people, educated class of society. That is an important part, and that should be our motto, to get as many people in the net as possible, so that we can see doctors are not needed for vaccination. We have healthcare workers, and healthcare workers are simple sisters, the nurses that you see in the hospital.
Nurses, yeah, absolutely.
So we have it is a simple shot. It doesn't require any specific technique. All we need to do is to organize the whole thing in a proper manner, so that should there be any adverse effects, it should be taken care of very, very promptly, so that we are not losing anyone on account of vaccination. That is our main motto. So as a healthcare professional, I'll be given a charge of probably 5 to 6 such centers where the vaccination is going on. But how vaccination is conducted, that is entirely an administrative and social work. So that requires NGOs, people at large.
इसको अगर आप हिंदी में भी समराइज करें तो बेटर होगा कि क्या कर रहे हैं हम लोग इस देश में इस इम्यूनाइजेशन एक्सरसाइज को लेकर, और ये सेफ कितना होगा उसको फिर से रिट्रीट कीजिए हिंदी में।
हाँ, सेफ्टी के तो कोई इशू नहीं है, क्योंकि आपके पास, जैसे डॉक्टर रोहित बोल के गए, कि आपके पास 2 ही ऑप्शन है, या तो आप इस वायरस को लेकर के आईसीयू में जाइए या कॉम्प्लिकेशंस में रहिए, या फिर इसके छोटे मोटे जो साइड इफेक्ट्स हैं उनके साथ 2-4 घंटे जीता रहिए। ये आपकी चॉइस है। वैक्सीनेशन आपको फोर्स करके नहीं दिया जाए। दैट इज नंबर 1। सो वैक्सीनेशन लेना है,
जिनको नहीं लेना है वो ना ले।
लेकिन आपको ये समझ लेना होगा कि अगर आप वैक्सीनेशन नहीं लेते हैं तो हर्ड इम्यूनिटी में एक आदमी कम होगा। हर्ड इम्यूनिटी इज द अल्टीमेट गोल, और हर्ड इम्यूनिटी में अगर एक भी आदमी कम होता है तो ये साइकिल जो है उसको ब्रेक करना मुश्किल होगा। आपको ये वायरस जब आपके खांसने से आपके मुंह से निकलता है तो ये 4 फीट की दूरी पे गिरता है। उस 4 फीट पे अगर उसे कोई जिंदा आदमी जिसको पहले से एंटीबॉडी ना हो, जो वैक्सीनेटेड ना हो और जिसने सफर नहीं किया हो, अगर वैसा आदमी नहीं मिलता है तभी वो आगे बढ़ेगा और ग्रो करेगा, उसकी संख्या बढ़ेगी। तो अगर आप ये चीज समझ लें अच्छी तरह से कि हर व्यक्ति को एंटीबॉडी लेवल बन जाता है आइदर बाय ऑफ नेचुरल इन्फेक्शन और बाय वे ऑफ वैक्सीनेशन, तब तक इस वायरस के ऊपर कंट्रोल करना मुश्किल है। और जैसा बता रहे नाइजीरिया में बच्चों को
पूछा कि आप 100 करोड़ लोगों को 4 महीने के भीतर कैसे इम्यूनाइज कर देंगे, क्या सिस्टम बनाए, कैसे
एक साथ सारे जगहों में करेंगे। जैसे मेरे शहर की बात करें तो हमारे यहाँ जैसे कि 7-8 जो है ऐसे सेंटर बने हैं हर लोकेलिटी में, और हर जगह पहले से लोगों को रजिस्टर करके वहां पर जाना होगा। वहां पर एक डिसिप्लिन बनाना होगा। वहां लोग लाइन से आएंगे, धक्का मुक्की नहीं होगी, वहां कोई पैरवी नहीं लगाई जाएगी, वहां कोई ये नहीं कहेगा कि हमें पहले कर दिया, हमें बाद में कर दीजिए। इन सारी चीजों में डॉक्टर की जरूरत नहीं है। ये सारी चीजें जो है,
आपको याद होगा जब हम लोग शुरू में कोविड को लेकर बात कर रहे थे, उस वक्त इंडिया लॉकडाउन में जा रहा था और हम लोग उस वक्त बात कर रहे थे कि जो क्वारंटाइन सेंटर्स वगैरह बनाए गए थे उसमें ये रूल होगा वो रूल होगा। अल्टीमेटली क्या हुआ वो हमने देखा। अभी आज का जो सवाल है उसमें कंसर्न छुपा हुआ है कि अगर ऐसा ही इनडिसिप्लिन होने लगा तब तो ये मेडिसिन तो इस शॉट को लगाने के लिए एक टेम्परेचर मेंटेन करना होता है, जैसा आपने बताया। अगर हिंदुस्तानी की तरह बिहेव करेंगे तो फिर इस बात की गारंटी कैसे कि 4 महीने में सबको इम्यूनाइज कर हो सकता है, 4 साल लग गए। दैट इज व्हाई हिज कंसर्न इज
so this is a challenge for all of us. And people like
Yes.
you and I, that is what repeatedly I am saying, people like you and I will have an important role to play. हमको लगता है कि सारे काम छोड़ करके, जैसे पिछले 10 महीने से हम घर में बैठे हैं, अब सारे काम छोड़ करके अगले 4 महीने में हमको सड़क पे आकर के इसको ऑर्गेनाइज करने में सरकार की मदद करनी होगी। ये हमारे आपके अकेले बूते की बात नहीं है।
ओके, और इम्यूनाइजेशन इज द मस्ट।
और डॉक्टर साहब ने जो बोला, सुनील, उसमें एक और चीज ऐड कर दूं मैं, क्योंकि मैंने पूरा सुना नहीं, मुझे पता नहीं वेदर उसको किसी ने टच किया कि नहीं। co.win नाम का एक ऐप है जो गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया लॉन्च कर रही है। वंस दैट इज लॉन्च, आप उस ऐप के थ्रू भी अपने आप को रजिस्टर करा सकते हैं, तो आपको जाके कहीं लाइन लगाने की जरूरत भी नहीं है, घर बैठे बैठे आप वहां से
कर सकते हैं।
गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया आपको कुछ नहीं करना है। जो लोग, कई लोग पूछ रहे हैं कि क्या रजिस्टर कैसे करें, बहुत सिंपल है। आप गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया की किसी भी वेबसाइट पे जाइए, किसी भी वेबसाइट पे, आप चाहे पीएमओ के वेबसाइट पे जाइए, चाहे आप मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ होम अफेयर्स पे जाइए, हेल्थ पे जाइए, एचआरडी में जाइए, कहीं पर भी जाइए, उसमें एक लिंक आता है, रजिस्टर योरसेल्फ फॉर कोविड इम्यूनाइजेशन, वैक्सीनेशन। ये आने वाले दिन में और बढ़ने वाला है। आपको हर गवर्नमेंट डिपार्टमेंट के वेबसाइट पे ये मिलेगा। उसके बाद पब्लिक सेक्टर के वेबसाइट जो वहां भी मिलेगा, जो प्राइवेट कंपनीज है वहां भी मिलेगा, मीडिया हाउसेस पब्लिसाइज करेंगी, हर वेबसाइट जो न्यूज देता है उस पर होगा, रेडियोज पे होगा, एफएम पे होगा। तो आपको उसकी फिक्र करने की जरूरत नहीं है। आपको पता होगा अच्छे से कहां पर जाके आप रजिस्टर कर सकते हैं। रजिस्टर करना है या नहीं करना है ये आपकी मर्जी, लेकिन डॉक्टर अस्के मित्र ने जैसा बोला, रजिस्टर कर लेना बेटर है, क्योंकि आपके पास अगर चांस है इसको 60% कम करने का या 95% कम करने का, तो प्लीज टेक दैट रिस्क। आपको अगर कोई साइड इफेक्ट होता भी है तो वो
माइनर है।
रोहित नहीं है, डॉक्टर रोहित ने बताया कि वो बहुत आपके जानलेवा नहीं होगा। इट विल नॉट अफेक्ट योर लाइफ, इट विल नॉट बी लाइफ थ्रेटनिंग। तो
इट इज नॉट, एब्सोल्युटली एब्सोल्युटली। हम और आपने सुनील, हर किसी ने बचपन में एक शॉट लिया हुआ है, चाहे वो फ्लू शॉट होगा, चाहे हर फ्लू शॉट पे देयर इज सम माइनर डिस्कम्फर्ट व्हिच इज देयर, व्हिच इज हाफ अ डे, या तो आपको फीवर आएगा या चिल्स आएगा या हेडेक आएगा या व्हाटएवर। इट इज ओनली 1 या 2 दिन का एपिसोड है, दैट्स इट। सो उसमें कोई डरने वाली बात है नहीं।
एक सिर्फ मेरा रिक्वेस्ट होगा सारे लोगों से, जितने लोग भी सुन रहे हैं, ईच वन टीच वन। आप कम से कम एक आदमी को मदद करिए रजिस्टर करके उसको वैक्सीनेशन लगवाने तक। Probably this is the only way out. This is the only way.
idea, doctor.
मेजॉरिटी लोगों ने सवाल वही पूछे थे डॉक्टर साहब, एक ये कि क्या इसके साइड इफेक्ट है, उसका जवाब हम लोगों ने दे दिया। दूसरा सवाल ये था कि क्या मेडिसिन क्यों नहीं बन रहा है, उसका भी जवाब दे दिया कि मेडिसिन का अभी तक उतना रिसर्च नहीं हुआ है, क्योंकि बहुत सारी ऐसी चीजें, बहुत सारे ऐसे एलिमेंट्स हैं, जैसे एड्स है, HIV है, या इवन क्या और भी 2-3 ऐसे बीमारी है जिसमें कोई दवाई नहीं है।
वायरस के लिए कोई मेडिसिन हो ही नहीं सकता, क्योंकि वो चेंज होता रहता है, हमेशा चेंज होता रहता है। जैसे बैक्टीरिया वो चेंज नहीं होता है, वायरस चेंज होता रहता है, तो उसके लिए मेडिसिन होना बड़ा मुश्किल है। आप देखिए HIV के लिए भी अभी तक कंप्लीट कोई मेडिकेशन नहीं है। किसी भी वायरल डिजीज के लिए मेडिकेशन होता नहीं है, और मेडिसिन अगर होगा भी तो उसमें कम से कम 10 से 15 साल लगते हैं, स्टैंडर्ड उसका टाइम है। तो वो उस पे अभी फोकस करना है, वो काफी लंबा हो जाएगा। अभी जो हमारे सामने जो समस्या है उसके लिए हमें वैक्सीनेशन ही चाहिए।
सबसे जरूरी वो है कि जो लोग सेफ है उनको सेफ रखा जाए। यही कोशिश है कि जो लोग को, जिनको नहीं हुआ है, उनको कम से कम सेव कर ले, उनको प्रिवेंट करते हैं। तीसरा जो था वो सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट था, जो बहुत कॉमन सवाल था, वो ये कि जब वैक्सीन आ रहा है तो फिर 2 गज की दूरी है जरूरी, और मास्क, और आपका सैनिटाइजेशन, या आपको सैनिटाइज करना, हाथ को धोना जरूरी क्यों? एक बार हमने ले लिया, हम तो सेफ हो गए, अब हम घूमेंगे।
नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है।
आपने कर दिया हमको,
नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है ना।
ऐसा क्यों नहीं है?
ये वायरस बड़ा नीच किस्म का वायरस है। इट्स वेरी ट्रेचरस, और ये हर समय अपने कानून अपने बनाता है और ये खुद बदलता रहता है। द वैक्सीनेशन इज गोइंग टू जस्ट रिड्यूस द सिवियरिटी ऑफ दिस डिजीज, इट इज नॉट गोइंग टू एलिमिनेट द डिजीज, लेट इज बी वेरी क्लियर। इस वैक्सीन से आपके जो बीमारी होने की जो उसका जो एक्सटेंट है वो कम होगा, उसकी जो सिवियरिटी है वो कम होगी, लेकिन बीमारी खत्म नहीं होगा। और तब तक आपको, जब तक कि कंप्लीट हर्ड इम्यूनिटी नहीं होता, इसमें आपको SMS जो है वो आपको लगा रहेगा। आपके पास मास्क और सोशल डिस्टेंस, और ये जो, और उसके अलावा मैं आपको बता दूं कि ये जो है ये एरियल रूट से ज्यादा फैलता है, अभी टच करने से कम फैलता है, एरियल रूट से ज्यादा फैलता है। तो आजकल हम लोग कहते हैं 3C, क्लोज्ड एंड क्राउडेड स्पेसेस, क्लोज्ड एंड क्राउडेड स्पेसेस, क्लोज्ड इंटरैक्शन, है ना। तो इन चीजों से आपको बच के रहना है,
क्लोज इंटरेक्शन से ही बच के रहना है, और क्लोज एंड क्राउडेड
और
एरिया
क्राउडेड स्पेसेस में हम लोग मजाक में हम लोग बता रहे हैं आपको बता दूं मैं कि जो व्यक्ति सड़क के किनारे खोमचा लगा करके केले बेच रहा है, is much safer compared to some investment banker who is trying to sell loan to someone in a small, very plush looking cabin which is closed from all sides. So he is more likely to catch the virus. तो अभी ये गरीबों,
आप अभी भी लॉकडाउन में हैं, आगे भी लॉकडाउन में रहेंगे, ये जिंदगी तो लॉकडाउन में कट जाएगी।
इसीलिए हम कहते हैं कि आपको अगर बातचीत करनी है तो अगल बगल खड़े होकर के कीजिए, आमने सामने मत करिए, और जितने मीटिंग्स है वो सब कॉरिडोर में कीजिए या जूम पे कीजिए। आप एक कमरे के अंदर बंद होकर कुछ मत करिए, जहां तक हो सके।
ये जो हम लोग का इंटरेक्शन है, ये सेफ है।
Yeah, this is the safest. This is the safest.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. So that's about it. And
Thanks, Dr. Sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much for giving me a chance. Thank you.
You gave so much of time. आप आते हैं, बहुत सारी चीजें बता देते हैं, और पब्लिक बहुत क्लैरिटी के साथ उनको सुन लेती है और समझ लेती है। तो थैंक्स अ लॉट। प्लीज आइए, और कई लोगों के बहुत सारे सवाल होंगे, तो एक दिन और भी कोई नया टॉपिक लेकर करेंगे, और थैंक्स अ लॉट। थैंक यू। तो आज दोनों डॉक्टर थे हमारे पास, एक यूके से डॉक्टर रोहित मिश्रा और एसके मिश्रा रांची से, एक इंडियन डॉक्टर, एक डॉक्टर फ्रॉम अब्रॉड, एंड बोथ द डॉक्टर्स फेल्ट वेरी क्लियरली कि आपके पास ये जो वैक्सीन का जो टूल है, वो सिर्फ आपको आपकी बीमारी को लिमिट करने के लिए, आपकी बीमारी से कंप्लीट प्रोटेक्शन देने के लिए नहीं है। यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट दिस इज जस्ट अ प्रिवेंटिव स्टेप। आप वैक्सीनेशन जरूर करवाइए, वैक्सीनेशन नहीं करवाएंगे तो आप रिस्क जोन में जा रहे हैं। डॉक्टर्स आर एडवाइजिंग डोंट गो इनटू दैट रिस्क जोन। साइड इफेक्ट नहीं है, लेकिन अगर थोड़ा बहुत है भी तो वो बाकी इम्यूनाइजेशन की तरह ही है, ज्यादा नीड नॉट वरी। आप अगर इसको लेते हैं तो आप लार्जली 95%, 65% से लेकर 95% तक सेफ हो जाते हैं, और दैट्स अ बिग नंबर, बिकॉज 5% का ही रिस्क है। अगर उतना 5% का रिस्क तो लेना ही पड़ेगा किसी भी चीज में। जैसे डॉक्टर मिश्रा ने कहा कि अगर गाड़ी लेकर चलते हैं आप, तो रिस्क तो 5% का रहता है, बट लार्जली आप सेफ रहता है और गाड़ी चलाते हैं। उसी तरह इस वैक्सीन को भी आप लीजिए, प्लीज रजिस्टर कीजिए। एज द डेज गो बाय आपको उसकी इंफॉर्मेशन पता चल जाएगी, कहाँ पे आपको रजिस्टर करना है। जो लोग नहीं लेना चाहें, फ्री नॉट टू टेक इट। बच्चों के लिए इम्यूनाइजेशन नहीं है, तो बच्चों यानी 16 ईयर से कम एज को बच्चों को इम्यूनाइज नहीं किया जाएगा, उसके ऊपर किया जाएगा। अगले 4 महीने में एक हरकिन टास्क है जो पूरा करना है। लेट्स सी हाउ इंडिया फेयर्स एंड हाउ वेल वी प्रोटेक्ट आवरसेल्फ अगेंस्ट कोविड। We'll be back with in another 20-30 minutes with our new show, which is FYI Plus, जिसमें हम लोग कई सारे टॉपिक को लेकर बात करेंगे, और आज हम बात करेंगे कैट फाइट की, just in a few minutes. So stay connected, come back and listen to that. Thank you so much.